On this episode, I want to talk about 5 essential elements that you need to know when you are growing your own seedlings. The first one's going to be watering. The second one is going to be fertilizing. The third element is going to be air circulation. The fourth is going to be uppotting, when and how to do that. And then the very last element is going to be hardening off your seedlings, when to do that, how to do that before you plant them outside. Hope this is helpful. Let's go. Right here in front of me, I have a tray of soil blocks. And as I'm starting seeds in them and waiting for those seeds to sprout, I like to mist them with this water mister to make sure that the top of the soil block is always wet for the seed to germinate. But maybe in a few days or once a week, as I see that the actual soil block is dry, I like to bottom water. So I pour the water on the side of the tray. And then that way I want to make sure that all the soil blocks are nice and moist with water. So as you pour the water on the side, I like to tilt the tray to make sure that the water actually saturates and goes down to the other soil blocks on the other side of the tray. You put water here and then you wait kind of as the water slowly soaks up into the first row of soil blocks. And then after a while, you just kind of tilt it a little bit, and then the water goes to the other side of the tray. So that's important. So sometimes it takes a lot of water, sometimes it doesn't take as much. So I just kind of gauge it and make sure that all the soil blocks are nice and wet. Eventually, some of the soil blocks kind of look like this, where they have little white powdery mildew on them. And that's just common just because they're grown in soil blocks. And if not enough air touches that side of the soil block, that's typical. But it's nothing scary and your seedlings will be fine. But you can see little seeds are germinating here. So the soil blocks hold well together, and just make sure that don't pour the big spout over the actual soil blocks because it'll break them. So just bottom water. So on the side, make sure you water the soil blocks that way. As I'm waiting for my seedlings to germinate, I do keep them on a heat mat. And then once kind of everybody almost pops all the way through, that's when I take off the tray from the heat mat. Whenever I'm growing in trays like this, these are seed cells, they're called. So I bottom water as well. And those kind of sometimes take a little bit more water. It just depends. So same thing with the soil blocks. Whenever I'm waiting for the seeds to sprout, I do mist the top of the soil to make sure that the seeds come through. But then every once in a while, I also like to check the bottom of the seed cell and see if the soil is dry there. And then I do bottom water. So I pour the water there. And then you can see these seed cells, they have a slit on the sides to help with drainage and air pruning of the roots. And then it has a big hole in the bottom for the water to soak up. So I just kind of keep an eye on my seedlings and then make sure that the water comes all the way through and that the soil block soaks all the water, and then that the top of it is wet. So these are my petunias, and I kind of seeded a lot of them in each cell, put a lot of seeds in each cell, knowing that later on I will have to uppot them, and we'll talk about that later. But I knew that later on I will have to divide these little seed cells. But for now, that's kind of what helps you save space, and you can plant a lot and then see who germinates, who doesn't, and it's just a great way to do that. And I love these African daisies. You can see the seeds are actually still on the plant. It's such a cool visual. I love it so much. So that's what I do with my seed cells. And then if you have excess water at the end, when you see that all the cells are all full of water, then you can drain the water off, kind of tilt it to the side and then drain the excess water off. I will admit that overwatering is my weakness. I love to water so much, and I love to just take care of my plants. I want to make sure they have enough water. So overwatering is one of those things that you want to keep an eye on and make sure that you're not suffocating your plants, which I actually did that with my rosemary. I overwater that a little bit too much with my seedlings. So I only have 5 seedlings that are alive from that whole batch that I showed you before that I did. So, but even these containers here, I'll make sure that I have drainage holes. So yep, I make sure I poke holes through and then have drainage holes that they can soak up the water from the bottom up. The second element to successful seedlings that I want to talk about is fertilizer. And I use this Alaska fish fertilizer that I will admit it is so stinky, and your house is going to smell very, very bad, and your whole family is not going to be happy with you, but you got to do what you got to do. So I try to fertilize once a week, and it is wintertime when I was doing this, so you can't really open windows to aerate, but I try to choose sunny days at least, when on some, every once in a while I can open the windows a little bit and aerate the house, because honestly it really does smell really bad. What I do is I pour a little bit of fertilizer into my watering can and then add the water, so that way it all kind of mixes in as the water is pouring into the can. But I guess you can mix it in a separate bowl, the fertilizer with some water, and then put it into your watering can. And then the days that I fertilize I try to choose the days that the seedlings need water anyway. So like everybody's almost kind of dry and it's, time to water them. And so I use that opportunity then to use my fertilizer once a week. The third element that shouldn't be overlooked is air circulation. It is so important for your seedlings to keep the airflow going in the room so you don't get powdery mildew, so the seedlings don't stay moist consistently, but they dry out and just kind of have that get ready for the natural environment when they go outside, and they're going to have wind outside, and it kind of gets the seedlings nice and strong, gives them a strong stem, so then that way they are ready for the outside elements. The next element for successful seedlings is uppotting. When to do it, how to do that. So I'm going to show you what I've done. So whenever I started a lot of the seeds, I kind of put tons of them in the seed cells. And then even when I did soil blocks, I would put 2 seeds, like here's broccoli, and I would put 2 seeds in each block to make sure, that at least one of them germinated. Well, I had some of them that 2 seeds germinated, and I want to keep both of them. I didn't want to, cut one off. So I'm going to be doing that in soil blocks, and I'll be doing my broccoli and my pansy flowers. I'll be uppotting them into the soil blocks. So I take these soil blocks and I will separate them. And honestly, the best time to separate them is when the soil block is a little bit wet, not soaking wet, but like not terribly dry, because it kind of helps the roots to separate better. If the soil block is completely dry, the roots are going to get broken when you try to separate them. So it's best for it to be a little bit wet. And that's what I do. I just make a little bit of a bigger hole on my new soil block, and then I kind of stuff the seedling in there, the roots and all, and then just kind of top it off with the soil as well. With broccoli, the time that I like to divide them, to separate, to uppot them, is right about this stage when, you have the true leaves are starting to come through. So they have about 3 or 4 leaves on them. You don't want to wait till the seedling's too big, because it's a little bit harder on the seedling to go through kind of that trauma. So the younger the seedling, the better they kind of bounce back and recover. I like to uppot my broccoli and pansy seedlings into these soil blocks. This will be the only time that I will uppot them, and they will stay in the soil blocks until they are ready to then be planted in the garden. The actual soil block, I'll just plant that right into the garden outside. Here I have stock that I put tons of seeds in each cell, and a lot of them germinated. And so then what I did is right at this stage is when I would kind of went through, and then I uppotted them, and I put 2 seedlings in each cell, and that worked really well. With pansies, same thing. I had tons of them that were in there, and what worked best is to have that really wet, and the pansies separated so well. They're super rooty. Their roots are really kind of big, and having the soil wet just kind of made those roots just glide through, and it was really easy to separate it. And then same thing, I was able to put them in the soil blocks, roots and all. Works really well. Look at those roots. I make sure that I label my peppers because the spicy peppers, you're supposed to plant them a little bit further away from your sweet peppers, just so they don't cross-pollinate and you don't get like a funky spicy pepper when it's supposed to be sweet. So I make sure that I label my peppers always. And then whenever a seedling's in one soil block, I just put it in the pot with a little bit of soil, and then make sure that you kind of push the soil on the sides, so that way the whole pot is filled with soil nicely. Whenever I have two seedlings in one soil block, it's super easy to separate. And this is about the stage that I like to do them. When they're a little bit too young, it's kind of hard to do them with the peppers. But this is the stage that I like to separate mine, just so they're not competing for space, for nutrients, and they can kind of both grow equally as strong and nice. So this is what I do. I just separate the soil block really easy, just kind of crumbles apart, and then I put them in the individual containers. I make sure to water everything after uppotting and doing all that root disturbance. Just water everything once through, and they all should be good to go. After all the work we put into our seedlings leading up to this point, comes the final element, which is hardening off your seedlings. This is getting them acclimated to the outside air, to the outside sunlight, to the cooler air, warmer air, whatever it is. And so what I like to do is on the first day, I take them outside for maybe an hour, and then the second day a few more hours, and then bring them back in, and then just kind of alternate that until the fourth day. I try to see if they can stay overnight, through the night, because the nights are usually cooler, and then after 5 or so days they're ready to be planted outside. But I try to make sure that I alternate between sunny days and partly cloudy days as well, just so they can experience everything. I hope this was helpful. I'm wishing you all the encouragement and all the luck with all your seedlings. I hope this was helpful, and until next time, enjoy. Bye.